The following podcast is a Dear Media production.
Hello, Real Stuff podcast listeners. Welcome back to the show. Today we are in a brand new studio if you're watching on YouTube, and this will be our new studio from here into the future. So most, if not all of our future episodes will be recorded here, and I'm very excited to officially have this beautiful space for us. You probably know what episode I'm about to be discussing here, but it seems I owe you an update. If you listened to my previous episode, episode 31, titled The Wildest Interaction I've Ever Had with a Follower, then you already know this story. But if this is your starting point and you're brand new here, let me just give you a little refresher. Back in 2020, I was catfished by a follower of mine. She sent me an email. She was a 16-year-old girl from Italy. She wrote to me letting me know that she had stage 3 lung cancer and 2 months to live. And then a couple months later, emailed me as her dad telling me that she had passed away. Long story short, I uncovered the whole lie of it all, and I discovered that she was actually the one communicating with me as her dad, and that she was in fact alive and well. Crazy story, and as I mentioned, that was back in 2020, and what did I do about it? I emailed her dad, and I told him, listen, I think when a teenage girl has access to the internet, she can be doing some pretty dangerous things, and I think as her father, you deserve to know this, potentially need to revoke some of her internet privileges. And I just sent the email off and said, you could choose to do whatever you want with this information. And I really didn't expect to hear back from him, and I didn't. But I shot it off. So highly recommend you go listen to that full episode so you can hear that whole story, because in 2020, that is where the story ended. And that was 5 years ago. I posted that podcast episode just about 9 months ago, and when I uploaded it, it got a few thousand views on YouTube. It got another, 10 to 15,000 downloads across our audio channels, Apple, Spotify, Audible. And whoever heard the story and thought it was pretty crazy. I got a lot of messages from people saying how crazy it was. Fast forward to a couple of months ago, and I was experimenting with ways that we can grow this podcast. I've been having so much fun shooting every single episode of The Real Stuff, and we've just been in severe growth mode, trying to get the word out about the show, trying to get more listeners. And I looked back at those download numbers of episode 31, and I realized, you know what? This is a great story, a truly great story for the ages, and I do not think enough people have had the chance to listen to it. And not only is it a good story, but it has such a powerful message, and I think especially in 2025 with the internet and the dangers of the internet, I think more people need to hear this and learn about what could possibly be happening out there. So I thought it would be a great idea to take the previous podcast episode and chop it into a short series that was vertically cut, native for my social media platforms. And at first, I was actually going to take that hour-long episode and chop it up into part 1, part 2, part 3, and post it across my platforms. But then I realized I'm a content creator. I know that even though people share a lot of podcast clips on social media, if you're creating something for social media that you want to be seen by a lot of people, you need to make it native to social media. So you need to shoot it for vertical video. And for me, the number one platform that I was creating this content for was YouTube Shorts. YouTube is probably my oldest audience. It's where I got my start back in the refinery days. And I knew, especially with the number of people that listened to the episode on YouTube, which was only a few thousand at the time, I have 500,000 YouTube subscribers, and there are more people in my YouTube following that need to hear this story. So my intention was originally to create this for YouTube Shorts, but I was, of course, planning on posting it across Instagram and TikTok as well. To be honest, I was really inspired by some recent storytime content that I have seen across the internet. If you remember the Brett Fairley storytime cut down about his paternity fraud story, that was super intriguing to me. And not only did he share that across his social platforms and reach millions of people, but it also landed him in jail for breaking his court order to not speak out on social media. And when I watched that and a bunch of other storytime content on social media, oh, by the way, Brett is out of jail. He did send me a DM and he was let out, which is great news after that whole saga. But back to this story. I've been extremely inspired by storytelling. I truly believe that there is no bigger loss in the world than a good story that does not reach an audience, or a good story that nobody has the chance to hear. And that is why this podcast, The Real Stuff, has navigated to a place where primarily what we are doing is sharing real stories. They're always true. Obviously, this is the real stuff, but they are stories that would make someone's jaw hit the floor. When I bring on a guest to tell a story on this show, of course, I'm always looking for real stories, but I am looking for the wildest, most insane stories that the moment you hear them, you need to call 5 friends and relay the information to someone else. I don't want just the average generic stories. So as a listener of this podcast, know that when you hear guests on this show come on to tell stories, they are going to be out of this world stories. So I got started creating this series primarily for YouTube Shorts, but also to post on Instagram and TikTok. And I knew that if I was going to be recording it vertically, I also needed to edit it in a way where I could pop up all of the emails and all of the receipts and share evidence of everything that is true. And just an aside here, the story is so crazy that I did get a handful of accusations that it wasn't true. And the truth is, there's really no way for me to prove to you that it's true because I will never be releasing the actual email address or name of this person. And unless I know you in real life, you're never going to get the chance to see the actual emails. But my friends and family and anyone who knows me in real life knows that it's true, and that is all that matters to me. Let's talk a little bit about the production of this series, because I don't think I've produced a series in the same way that I've produced this series all the way since my Refinery 29 video content. And even then, I wasn't treating that content sort of like I was producing a TV show. And what I mean by that is when you are producing a show, there's very much the pre-production portion. You're doing the research, you're writing the scripts. Then there's the production days, the days you're on set shooting, and then you go into post-production. And for days, weeks, or months, you could be in the edit phase, putting the final together. And you usually finish editing everything before you even start posting episode 1 to the public. Even at Refinery 29, my content was not operating that way. I was always rolling out content weekly at Refinery 29. So I might be in post-production for one video while another video is going live. We did not shoot the Try Living with Lucie seasons as packages. But for this content, I wanted to make sure that I had all 10 episodes of this miniseries shot, edited, and ready to go before I even hit post on episode 1. Scripting and preparing how I was going to tell the story probably took the bulk of my time. I spent a couple of weeks writing out the entire story, breaking it into 10 parts, figuring out which pieces were going where, how much of the emails I was going to read, and then, of course, timing each of my scripts to make sure that they were max 90 seconds so that they could fit into YouTube Shorts. And that's another thing to note. I got a lot of comments of people telling me that I needed to make them longer, that I was dragging it out for views and wasting time. As I mentioned, this is for YouTube Shorts, and YouTube Shorts can only accommodate 90-second videos. So I made sure this content was 90 seconds long, and I recorded and practiced and timed it so that I was fitting the full story that I wanted to tell across 10 parts that were max 90 seconds. This was such an exciting way to work for me because, as I said, I really haven't created content in this way before. So not only did I write all the scripts across weeks, but then I took another couple of weeks just shooting. I shot each episode in a different day. I'm wearing different clothes in every episode. And when it was done, I spent a couple of weeks editing everything. And actually editing episode 1 of the series was probably the most exciting to me because that was when I had the chance to really iron out what the series was going to look like visually and to package it. As you can see in each episode, there's a specific style of text graphics that carries through from the beginning to the end. There's a specific way that I pop up the emails and I cover the information that I don't want you to see. And then I also highlight text as I'm reading through. Every episode is the same stylistically, and I had to make that choice and iron it out in episode 1 and then carry it through for the remainder of the series. And I was always headed towards episode 10, which was the end of the series and which would be where I had planned to reveal my meaning behind this series, which was fundraising for cancer research. So the 10th episode of this show was intended to end in terms of, how the story ends, just the way that my previous podcast ended. It was supposed to end with me saying that I emailed her dad and that it's now been 5 years and I have not heard back from him. When I put this content out, when I hit post on episode 1, I kid you not, I did something that I've never done with my content creation and with my content posting in the past. And that is, I did a full on manifestation of what I hoped for with this content. So before I hit post, I sat there in my office with my eyes closed and I spoke out loud to nobody, manifesting the fact that this content was about to go viral. I wanted to reach as many people as I possibly could because I have an important goal at the end of this to raise money for cancer research. And I want as many people as possible to see this, learn about the dangers of the internet, and come along and listen to my podcast and get hooked into other storytelling episodes that we do. Yes, I had a big goal. I wanted episodes to reach millions of views. I also was looking back at some of the other storytime content that I was inspired by, and I was reading some of the comments. And some of my favorite comments that these people were getting were people writing things like, "Shh, everyone, my show is on." Like the moment an episode would drop, people would start commenting with popcorn eating GIFs and telling people, this is like a Netflix show. This is my favorite show right now. And I was manifesting that that is what is going to happen with this storytime content. And I said it out loud. And you guys, the manifestation was successful. I hit post on episode 1. And the initial reception of episode 1 was pretty much what I expected. You cannot expect people to get hooked from one episode. But I hit post and the first few comments started rolling in. A couple of them were saying, "Oh, I heard this on your podcast a few months ago. Crazy story." Another couple of people were writing, "Ooh, I'm hooked. Can't wait for episode 2. Like when's the next part coming out?" And it was just starting to build steam. It did not go viral right away, but it definitely did well on my page. And I had the plan, as I said, all 10 episodes were locked and loaded. I was ready to go live with episode 2 the following day. I posted episode 2. All of a sudden, people are commenting, "Ooh, I'm getting intrigued." People are starting to speculate. A lot of people were really sad about the initial email. And then my warning at the end of "don't start crying just yet" was very intriguing to people. And all of a sudden, people are starting to get into it. I would say by episodes 4 or 5, we had people hooked. That is when I started getting the comments, "Shh, my show is on." Popcorn emojis. People are sharing it on their story saying, "This is the craziest story I've ever seen. I'm hooked." We were getting comments saying, "This is better than Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I'm hooked. I can't stop watching this. When is the next episode coming out?" Even still, some other people were pretty angry at the pace that I was rolling this content out. I have to say, this Storytime series taught me a lot about the attention span of some people these days. And it is bleak, you guys. People really want content fast and they want it to say a lot of stuff and they do not want you to drag it out. And the truth is, I shouldn't have had to explain in any way, shape, or form what my motives were for dragging it out. I obviously knew that my motive was I'm planning on raising money for cancer at the end of the story, but I shouldn't have had to tell people that. And I didn't tell people that. That was a surprise. But there were many times when I was feeling like, should I just tell them that there is actually a point of this? And it's not just about trying to monetize my platforms. And by the way, this whole saga really made me have a lot of thoughts around creators and monetization of content. The first thing I want to say about this is, yes, when you post content on various platforms, you do monetize some of the platforms. So at different times in the life cycle of being a creator, you could monetize on Instagram versus TikTok. Right now, at this exact point in time, creators are not, or I don't know if others are, but I make zero money from my Instagram reels. And Instagram really is the platform where this content went viral for me. It did not go viral on TikTok as much, but I do monetize on TikTok. And I think I made, I don't even know, $25 from this series on TikTok. As I mentioned, my goal of the content was not to monetize. However, a lot of the comments of people calling out that this is just a ploy for monetization and she's just trying to hook us in and clickbait and get views and monetize, it did make me think a lot because I was getting a little angered by the insinuation that I would just be making content to monetize. It did make me think about, well, wait a second. Although that was not the intention behind this series, Why is that a bad thing? Why should a creator not want to monetize their platforms? And I had this moment. I spoke to a friend and we really ironed out, what is my mission? What is my message? I work in the entertainment industry. I aim to entertain. I do want the content to go viral. I do want it to gain traction. At the end of the day, I do want to make money in my business. I do want to monetize. My friend was having me repeat over and over again, I am not a nonprofit. I am not a church. We were sitting there talking, being like, why why do people make you feel icky as a creator for wanting to grow your business? I started writing back to people, dropping comments like, it's showbiz, baby, entertainment industry. I do work in the entertainment industry. My goal is to entertain you right now and to get you to watch this content. And the whole point of this content was ultimately to do good, but I shouldn't have had to be doing something good at the end of this series for it to be valid content. I think I should have just been able to post this for entertainment purposes because I am an entertainer. Okay, that was just an aside. So now let's go back. Anyway, episode 5 comes out. People are hooked. Episode 6 comes out. It's getting good. And this is where things took a turn. I'm sitting in my kitchen. I sit down for lunch and I open my email just to check. It's another work day. I was posting episodes. I was getting episode 7 ready to launch the next day, but I opened my email and there in my inbox, amidst a few other recent emails, is an email with the subject line, Kiara. And not only was the subject line Kiara, but I knew it was, it did pass through my mind that maybe this is just a random person who's seeing the story, who's sending me an email and pretending to be the real person. Because remember, Kiara was the made up name. But then I saw it was coming from the email address that I had been communicating with back in 2020. And it was the real girl with her real name. In case you didn't see the story time, I'm going to read you her email that I got on May 21st, 2025. Hello, Lucie. I sent this very message on your Instagram DMs, but it seems as if I can only send one, so I'm writing this email instead, but you can find me on Instagram. I know this communication must come as a shock to you, and it's incredibly hard for me to write these words, but it's my responsibility to tell you the truth. I am, insert real name. I asked you to call me Kiara when I faked my illness and all the story. I pretended to be sick, to have a fake oxygen tube, and I faked my own death when I realized the lie I had completely made up was getting too big for me to handle. I also pretended to be my father before you emailed him directly. As you can perfectly see for yourself now, I am alive and on social media. When it all happened, I was 15 and felt as if empty during the pandemic when social interactions were cut to a minimum. So this story I had come up with spiraled into something bigger than me, and when my father found out through your emails, I just told him I had no clue who you were, and nothing came out of it. And after blocking you on multiple accounts on Instagram, deleting your emails, and the video that you had planned to upload on YouTube about my story, I pretended as if nothing had ever happened. I can only say I'm incredibly sorry for the pain I have caused to you and your family. I know that what I did is deeply wrong, and I'm very ashamed of what I did. I can't tell you why I did it, but when I saw that you were making videos about this story on your Instagram after 5 years, I knew it was time for me to own up to my mistake and tell you the truth. She then proceeded to share, it's hard for me to even read this part because there's so many things I would need to bleep out, but she then proceeds to share her full name, her birthday, where she's from, where she went to school from 1st grade to 10th grade, where she went to college, how she's now studying at a medical school. She told me her father's name, his job, her mother's name, her job, her brother's name, his Instagram account, more about her life, more about her family and where they have houses and where they live. And then she says, I understand you must be very confused and hesitant of the information I give you. If there's something I can do to demonstrate that this is the truth, I am available. I chose to contact you through Instagram so you could see directly for yourself that I'm alive and that you are in fact speaking with me. But if you'd like, I can share my email or other contact information. As I previously said, I am so ashamed of what I did that I have never told anybody, not even my mother, as my father partially understood the situation from your last email. I'm getting back to you after so many years because what I did is sincerely awful and you deserve to know the truth. I am deeply sorry. Thank you for your time. Whew. I sit there in utter shock reading this email after 5 years of being completely ghosted by this girl and her family. And the first thing I do is call my family, my mom, dad, sister, who were all there, all very much in the story, all very devastated when we found out she died, and all very shocked when we found out it was a scam. And then I started composing my reply to her. I sat on it for a couple hours, and then a little bit later in that same day, I sent my reply back. And one of the first things I realized is that I had to go back to the drawing board now, because the series was supposed to end at episode 10 with me saying, I have not heard back from them. But here I was hearing back, and I knew I was going to have to shoot more parts of this series, to the internet's dismay, because people were already upset that it was taking this long. But I ended up extending the series to 13 parts. Part 11 was the first half of that email to me, because as you can see, it takes a long time to read the full email, and I wanted to put as much in there as possible. So part 11 shared the first half of her email to me, and then part 12 shares the second half of her email plus the first half of my reply, and part 13, where we wrap it up, is the second half of my reply, as well as the fundraising portion, which we will get to. For people who did not watch the story time, I should probably read you my reply. Dear, insert real name. I was in utter shock seeing your name and email in my inbox. 5 years later, and this story has stayed with me, completely altering the way I trust and communicate with people on the internet. First of all, I extend my deepest gratitude to you for coming forward and owning up to what you did. It cannot be an easy thing to do after such an exhaustive lie. I am sure that seeing me tell the story on social media has stirred up many emotions. You can rest assured that I will never share your name or personal information publicly. It is not my intention to out you or to disrupt your personal life or career. I will be finishing the story and disclosing that you've reconnected with me, but I will, of course, remove all identifiable details from your email. Please know that I'm not sharing this story publicly to shame you, but rather as a valuable lesson to others about the potential dangers of social media. You may have been an innocent teenager who was seeking connection and attention, but not everyone's intentions are so harmless. Teenagers can do stupid things and make big mistakes, and although this situation goes far beyond a silly prank, I think it was very mature of you to come forward and tell the truth, even after 5 years have passed. I wish you the best in life and in your future as a doctor, and I hope that one day you are able to save somebody's life who is actually suffering from stage 3 lung cancer. Grazie, Lucie. As I said in that final video, how do you take a situation that is so negative and turn it into something positive? In my opinion, you make it into art. This video series that I produced across my social channels is definitely an art form that I love to express myself in the form of videos. And so that was definitely cathartic to produce. But I would say that I wanted to create something that was tangible and really visual art. So I hired an incredibly talented Italian female designer to design this adorable graphic tee. It says the No Catfishing Club, and it's truly the graphic tee. If you haven't seen it, I'll pop up an image of it here on YouTube, but it truly is the graphic tee that I've been wanting to wear for the summer in the exact style I want and the exact font and colors and look, and I'm so excited about it. I hired her. I went on Google Translate. I typed in catfished in English to see what that translates to in Italian, and what popped up on Google Translate was pescato al gatto, which is what we ended up writing on the shirt. To be clear, I know this does not mean anything in Italian, and the artist of the shirt did remind me of that. She told me, we don't really have a word for catfishing. We just say, I was catfished, but I thought it was cute and it rhymed and it's art, so it doesn't need to make sense. It's just exactly how I wanted the shirt to look. And I will link down below in the show notes or the YouTube description box where you can buy that shirt. And remember, 100% of the money that I make from this shirt is going directly to the American Cancer Society. So the question that a lot of people are asking me after part 13, the series finale, is did I hear back from her again after my response to her? And the answer is yes. A lot of people were saying the story needs to go on. You can't end it here. But I do think the actual story is over. And I think, my response to her is my last reply that I plan on giving her likely in my life. But she did write to me actually 2 more times after that. And I guess for the purposes of the Real Stuff podcast, I will read you what she said to me in her follow-up emails. So here's her first email. Lucie, I understand this email came as a surprise, but I am happy that you chose to reply. My gratitude for your understanding really goes beyond words. I'm once again incredibly sorry for the pain I have caused you, and I'm well aware this went beyond a prank. And to this day, I still haven't found the courage in me to figure out why. I never thought that you were shaming me for the story. In fact, this has taught me a lesson that I knew I would have to face one day, which is that the things we do always come back to us. I'm actually grateful to you because now I can face my mistakes and hopefully learn from them instead of sweeping them under the rug. I have to admit that the fear of someone I know recognizing some details of the story or even connecting the dots and getting back to me or my parents is very stressful to me. However, I completely understand your will to share the rest of the story and to keep it online, and therefore I will respect it. Since seeing the videos online, I realized even more how impacting this must have been on your life and your perception of the internet and who we meet on it. So I hope in some way we can all learn something from this very terrible story. I am once again very sorry. I thought that was a very nice email. Honestly, it sounds like she has changed a lot. She was a teen, but it sounds like she has matured a lot, and I genuinely give her major props for coming to me and telling me this because, of course, I mean, I know for myself, I never had the intention of outing her or connecting with her family again or putting her name on the internet in any way, shape, or form. But someone else might have had that motive. And for her to send an email with all of that information about her, I don't know. I mean, especially being a medical student, I don't exactly know how something that you've done at 15 could disrupt your current career path, but she had to have been nervous that coming forward and sharing all this could jeopardize everything she's been working towards in her years of schooling and now in medical school. I don't know, but that was what some of the commenters were saying, and I agree. I think it was extremely brave of her to come forward. And now, clearly in this email, she's just a little afraid that it is all going to come back to her. In all of the content, I did obscure absolutely everything that would make her identifiable, including, every location she gave me, obviously her name, anything identifiable. I even obscured her dog's face because I thought I don't even know if the dog is still alive. I hope that she is, but I wanted everything to be private, and I really didn't want to risk her being found out from it. But as I mentioned, I did not respond back to that email. And then shortly after, she sent me another email. And so I'm just going to read a little part of it. It was very long, but keep in mind, this email came to me when the series was still being posted. So this wasn't after the series finale. This was maybe episode 8 or 9. She said, "Since seeing the videos on your Instagram, I've been going through a true roller coaster of emotions. I have to admit that I wasn't able to watch all of the videos from start to finish because of how ashamed I am of all I have done. I wish I had better words to describe how wrong I know it all is. And even if it may not be very valuable now, I do regret 100% of what I have done, said, and shared only to get some attention. In the last 5 years, everything has changed, and in the back of my mind, I thought that this would one day come back, and in fact, it did. If I look at myself now, I realize that I'm a completely different person, so much that I struggle to recognize my own actions. I have made it my responsibility to become a doctor to be able to heal people that are really sick. This is something that I will bring with me the rest of my life, reminding me that lying is the highest form of disrespect. I want to stress this is in no way trying to make you feel guilty or blaming you for having posted the story online, since, as I already said in my last email, I am responsible for my actions. And I would also like to underline that I don't want to act as the victim of the situation, because I certainly am not." Basically, my takeaway from this second email of hers was that she is extremely uncomfortable about the content being posted online, and she wasn't necessarily asking me to delete anything or to not post the rest of the story, but at different points in this email, she basically was, in kind of a meta way, writing out loud that she didn't even know what she was trying to say here in this email, but she just wanted to express to someone how stressed she's been seeing the series roll out. And listen, I don't blame her. As I said, I did not respond to either of these two emails just because I feel like my story with her is done. I personally don't feel the need to communicate with her again. And I don't feel there's any good that can come out of us continuing to be pen pals here. So I, for one, am done responding. But, if she's listening to this, or even if she's not, I have had the thought many times during reading her email where I feel like this girl should just own up to what she did to her family. If she's so concerned of the story coming back to her, if I were her, I might just go to my parents and say, listen, I made a really big mistake 5 years ago, and Dad, you already know about it because you got that email and I lied to you at the time, and I'm extremely sorry. I feel so much guilt over this. I did this years ago and I feel terrible, and I know that I'm never going to be able to be you don't even have to, she wouldn't even have to tell them that the content creator went and made content about it. She doesn't even have to tell them my name. She could just say, I impersonated you and I made up a story to get close to a creator that I liked, and it's been weighing on me. And I just want to come out and tell you that I did this, and I'm so sorry, and I feel really bad, and there's, nothing to do about it now except for get it off my conscience. Genuinely, that's what I would do because she seems so afraid that it's going to come back to her. But then again, I don't know her parents. I don't know her relationship with her family. It doesn't sound like she wants to do that. But anyway, that has been the end of our communication. Another very interesting piece about this whole story for me has just been watching the internet's commentary and watching the internet watch this story unfold and seeing the ebbs and the flows in the way that people are responding to this type of content. As I said, it started out very, gotta see what episode comes out next. Then it sort of went to a place of you're milking this for monetization and views, and people accusing it of not being a true story. And honestly, by the end, it really came around to, especially with the raising funds portion of it, which, as I mentioned, was the goal from episode 1. There was really nothing that people could say by the end. I think actually after episode 13 went live and after the purpose of the series came to light, I did go back to some of the earlier comments where people were suggesting that this had malintentions in terms of why it was posted. And I actually noticed a few people deleted their earlier comments because those comments just did not age well given what the actual purpose of the series was. And I think people were really happy to see something positive come out of such a negative story. And I think it really did put a nice little, hearing back from her did put a nice little bow on the end of the story. And it made it so it had a bit of a better ending than it initially was going to. And of course, by the end, many people supported by buying the catfishing shirt. And once again, that is linked down below if you want to check it out. So what was my final takeaway from this story? Well, my first inclination is to say that it's about not trusting people that I meet on the internet. And that is sort of what I share at the end of the finale, is that hindsight is 2020. Someone said no pun intended on that. 2020. It's true. Hindsight is 2020. And, it's easy to now look back at the emails and the situation and to see red flags that were very clearly there from the start that neither I nor my family saw at the time. And my major takeaway was that the internet is a dangerous place and that you just can't open up to people who you don't know. And people might not be who they say they are. And it really did thwart my desire to connect with people on the internet. But just yesterday, and by the way, this is now weeks past the story time, just yesterday, I got an email from someone anonymously. The email address, I guess they used a service that changed the email address that they sent it from. So it came in from a completely anonymous person. And I just want to read a portion of it out loud because it was interesting. So the subject line is thoughts on your series. And it says, "Good evening. I had some thoughts on your series of the wild interaction with Kiara and how you said that it forever changed the way that you interact with people online. I get that. Then she goes on to talk about how she saw my email address on this post. She links to the post where she found this email address and said, I hope contacting you is fine. If not, please delete or ignore this email. I speak from the perspective of being trained for my national crisis hotline, as well as having studied and worked in the fields of psychology and social work. My intention is to simply forward a piece of advice I received years ago that stuck with me, and with that, perhaps leave a trace of hope in you. And if it doesn't do it, that's okay too. About 10 years ago, during an international course on connecting to people and building bridges, a person I did yoga with every day and deeply connected with gave me the advice to never get disenchanted from people and to never lose my fire, even if not all are able to understand, feel as deeply, or get all those details in which I always was more aware of nuances. I obviously have no idea if any of that correlates to you since I don't actually know you. But if it does, I would like to tell you that there is truth in it. I guess being human can be difficult to all of us sometimes, connecting to people even more when we had experiences in which trust has been broken. So while I agree with your warning on potential dangers, I hope that it doesn't prevent you from connecting. And they end it with saying, once a very beautiful soul I met online told me, don't forget that you aren't a machine and your value doesn't reside on your productivity. Don't let the worst things in capitalism apply directly to us as if you were one more product to buy and sell. And that is an advice that I forwarded to so many friends. It really shaped my perception, and I wish that this experience doesn't take away all of the opportunities or moments in which someone else's words may impact you for years to come, even if you found that person online. So in summary, from one stranger to another, I hope things go all right for you and that you're not too impacted by this experience, even if it makes sense to be. And then they signed it from an alias. And seeing that come in stuck out to me because I was really at a point where I was about to just say, I've had it with the internet. I'm not trusting anything that anyone says. I even had someone recently from my town reach out to me to ask to get coffee with me because she heard through a friend that I can help teach content creation and do private one-on-one workshops. And she reached out to me to see if I could work with her. And I found myself going on this insane deep dive to confirm that this was actually a person when there were so many signs just right there on her Instagram that she was real. And some people might say that's good and you have to be smart and safe and the internet is crazy, but this email gave me the extra nudge that I needed that reminds me that we cannot shut out the outside world too much just because of one or two crazy people. Overall, this was a huge lesson for me, not only in content creation, but also in storytelling. It really did reignite my love of storytelling. It reminded me that at Johns Hopkins University, I was a creative writing major, and the track that I went down was the fiction track. And I spent my entire college experience writing fiction stories and telling stories. And obviously, all of these stories are real, but the art of storytelling, everything from if you are doing a short digital series, needing a strong hook and a strong cliffhanger. And there is an art form to putting a story together and getting people to care. And at the end of the day, it's not about hooking them in for no reason, but it's about hooking them in so that they can listen to the story. This all brings me to a little bit of a wider realization that I've had just in general about this podcast and the storytelling nature and the crazy storytelling nature of it all. I had a recent interaction in some of the YouTube comments that stuck out to me, and I wanted to share it with you here. It was on the story about our guest who recently got a divorce at age 26 after her ex was lying to her about trying to get her pregnant. The episode is a wild story, as with every story we have on this podcast. The title of the thumbnail is A Jaw-Dropping Divorce Story, because it is. The title of the episode is, quote, and this is a quote from the guest, "I wasn't infertile, I was being gaslit." Real story, real quote. The description of the episode tells it like it is, and it is a jaw-dropping story. We got a comment under it saying, I would like to leave feedback and preface this by saying that this is given with nothing but an informational and good intent. I personally liked the insightful contemplations and topics of the podcast's early days, but it has become very sensational and, quote, trash TV talk show like. For example, false fatherhood, crazy subscriber story, sensational divorce story. It feels very dramatic and extreme, and we already have so much of that in our everyday world. I miss the educated and intelligent content from before. Thus, I have decided to unfollow from YouTube and Instagram. I read this comment, and sometimes I get comments that make me feel bad, or I don't know, it makes me feel like it's a comment on my value as a creator or my skills or something. I read this comment and I just felt so at peace with what this podcast is about and who I'm aiming to talk to and what types of stories I'm trying to tell. And I ended up writing back to this commenter saying, "We're sorry to see you go. These are real people's stories. So although they might feel like trash TV to you, they are people's real lives, people from my audience. And I find them fascinating. Not every podcast is going to be interesting to everybody in the world. So I totally get it. Thanks for being here anyway. XO." Reading that comment and writing that response, it just reminded me that, especially as a creator, you are not for everybody. The content you're creating cannot be for everybody. It cannot interest every person. And, then just to keep with this chain, someone then wrote back to my comment on that, saying something about this episode rubbed me the wrong way, and maybe this was it. I think the audience caller stories are valid, but the promotion around them is almost clickbait. So then I'm reading this comment and I'm thinking, clickbait. I look at what is the thumbnail and what is the title of this episode. As I said, it says a jaw-dropping divorce story. It's a quote from the caller. I Google what is the definition of clickbait, because in my opinion, clickbait is when the text tells you that you're going to see something and then you click into it and it doesn't deliver on what it told you you're going to see. That was my understanding. And I found that the actual definition, which I ended up writing back another comment to this person, I said, "Hi. The definition of clickbait is content that is designed to make readers want to click on a hyperlink, especially when the link leads to content of dubious value or interest. I do not consider this clickbait because once people click in, the content delivers. I, as the creator, stand behind this story and all of the others told on this podcast and will stop at nothing to get people to click in so that they can hear them. There's no bigger loss than a good story that nobody hears." And I truly stand behind this from the bottom of my heart. I think what I need to do at this point is manifest and put out to the world that the listeners I'm trying to capture for this podcast are the people who want to hear the jaw-dropping stories. I am no longer trying to just foster, quote, intelligent conversations where I talk about pillars, but I want to get to the heart of the juiciest stories in the world. And that is my goal with the Real Stuff podcast. Yes, of course, I could make the titles, or, I could not use a quote for the title, or I could make the thumbnails way less enticing and have no text on them so that fewer people would click into it. But where is the fun in that? I am a content creator. I work in the entertainment industry. I want to entertain people and tell them good stories. And they can rest assured that every story that's told on this podcast is 100% entirely true. I'm going to leave it there today. Thank you so much for coming back to the Real Stuff. If you liked this episode, please drop us a comment down on YouTube. I would love to hear what you thought about the ending of this Kiara story, as well as all of my other takeaways about the podcast and the content creation space. And we will see you next time on The Real Stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Real Stuff podcast. If you're liking the show, please head over to Apple or Spotify and leave the show a written review. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below and join in the conversation. And if you're feeling called to be a guest on the show, visit luciefink.com/apply and tell us your story. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your attention with us, and we will see you next time on the Real Stuff podcast.
Please note that this episode may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products and services. Individuals on the show may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to in this episode.